You know, I try to never talk about religion on this channel at all, but holy hell, I don't think I'll ever look at a crucifix the same way again. Hey, what's up, bookworms and Legion? We are back again to talk a little spooky season, guys, and today it's 1971's The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. Guys, widely recognized as maybe the scariest book ever written, and a book I've been willing to read for a long time. I just never ever really got around to it. So just like The Godfather, The Exorcist is one that's always been on kind of my bucket list as movies that I love, but I've never actually read the very famous books that they were based off of. So gonna knock out two birds with one stone this year, guys. So like The Godfather, I've seen this movie at least a dozen times, so it had some high expectations going in. But look, guys, The Exorcist is such a pop culture thing at this point. I don't feel like I gotta tell you what this book is about, but for the sake of the format review of this channel, let's go ahead and talk about what the book is about. Now, actress and divorced mother Chris McNeil starts to experience difficulties with her usually sweet-natured 11-year-old daughter Reagan. The child becomes afflicted by spasms, convulsions, and unsettling amnesiac episodes. These abruptly worsen into the violent fits of appalling, foul-mouthed curses accompanied by physical mutation. Now, medical science is baffled by Reagan's plight, and in her increasing despair, Chris turns to troubled priest and psychiatrist Damien Karras, who immediately recognizes something profoundly malevolent in Reagan's distorted features and speech. Is there a scientific explanation, or is there something more sinister involved? And guys, it takes us back 51 years ago, guys. This is The Exorcist. I didn't know how to judge that. I was afraid of getting hot coffee on. And anyway, I don't use the cauldron cup very often, but you know, spooky season dictates something like that. But guys, let's go ahead and talk about what makes this book good or bad. I think good, the realism of this book. Now, I know everyone wants to think about the supernatural effect of it, but the gritty realism of some of the things here, basically what the human mind can handle. That's something, as like a reader of Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft, I've always appreciated just how much can the human mind take before it starts to break down. And you think about this from like a parental standpoint, and this is happening to your child. How long are you going to be able to hold it together, especially when everyone's telling you there's a rational, scientific explanation for all this? And they're like, oh, well, maybe they're just having like spasms when they're floating. You know, it's like, okay, let's be real here. And I know that, you know, when you talk about science versus faith, that's obviously going to be a huge theme in this book. You're going to have those things where, you know, you're going to be obviously frustrated when someone's telling you there's a scientific explanation and you know very well there's something very, very serious going on. But yeah, as a parent watching Chris's breakdown in this book, way worse than it was to watch the movie for me. Very, very difficult. I mean, the fact that she's able to hold it together and doesn't become even loonier than her daughter is becoming during the course of this book is actually quite a feat, you know, of how strong-willed she actually is. But I gotta say, you know, actually for your children, I think there's nothing that you would not do. And obviously something like this, I think the biggest thing is hope. Never give up hope. And that's something that's very, very prevalent here. Also is questioning of faith. Now, I said I don't like to get very much into religion or politics on the channel, but obviously with the story, I got to talk about religion a little bit, regardless of your beliefs. I think that's something that is easily presented here, as, you know, Chris in this book is an atheist. You know, she freaks out when someone has, you know, that gives Reagan a crucifix, you know. So, I mean, you get that, but it's also one of those things where, you know, I don't like going to the dentist. Like at all. But you know what? When I'm in awful tooth pain, there's nothing I won't do to get to a dentist. So it's one of those kind of things like, okay, look, yeah, I don't believe in a higher power, but oh my God, my kid might be possessed by a demon. You better believe I'm going to be like, immediately, you know, you're going to jump on board and be like, you know what? I was wrong. There's obviously, you know, an evil side. I need to get that good side, you know. So it does question a lot of those things, obviously, but it's never going to be one of those things like, if you're agnostic or if you're Christian or if you're Catholic or no matter what your beliefs are politically, it's not gonna affect how you view the book. I don't think it never once has like any kind of commentary on anything like that. I know that there were some people that told me they would not read this because of, you know, their blank beliefs, and I just say I don't think that it's ever going to make you feel any particular way, because I don't think Blatty's ever doing any kind of commentary on anything like that. So no worries there, because I mean there are several characters in this who are either religious or formerly religious, and you know they're struggling to regain their faith, or they have no faith at all. But that is a theme of the book, obviously. So no worries there. I also think dealing with guilt is kind of a big one. Obviously, we when I talk about dealing with struggling with regaining your faith, Damien in this, he is having a hard time with his faith because after his mom died, it's really messed him up, and he feels like an extreme amount of guilt for the way that his mother died and his role in it, or I guess you could say like his role of not in it. You'll see when you read the book, but it's dealing with that, dealing with him trying to find a reason to go back to his faith, especially when this guy is a psychiatrist. So you got the whole man of science versus man of faith thing, obviously in one shiny little wrapper here. And it makes Karras just an absolutely fascinating character that I think is touched on in the movie, but not nearly as much as it is here. You really do get into the psyche of this gentleman, and you get to know so many more things that the movie didn't do. And obviously, there's some things you can do in a book, right, that you can't do in a movie. That's why people most times are going to tell you that the book is better than the movie. But guys, the way that Damien handles his mother's passing in this, it just plays into the final act so chilling, yet beautiful, yet haunting. I mean, it's all the above. It really is. So the way that he deals with that in this book is something I think is going to stick with you a lot. And like I said, a lot so more than you got in the movie. But if you're looking for the scares, guys, this book has them, obviously. I think that every time that a character goes into that bedroom, you clench up a little bit, if you know what I mean, because you know that nothing pretty is going to come of it. Every single scene between Karras and Regan is just... You cannot blink when you're reading. You cannot stop. You don't even want to stop to turn the page. You just want to just keep going. It's so good. It's like there are parts of the book that I feel like, okay, I can see why they excised that for the movie. But with this, it's like, okay, yeah, every time you get those two together, man, it is some of the best stuff. So much so that I think it's actually a detriment, which I'll get to later, when you get away from some of those scenes. So, yeah, it's really good. And every scene with Regan, like I said, it's just absolutely horrifying when you realize that there, if Regan's still in there, are we even sure she's still in there? But guys, the scene with the crucifix, I mean, elephant in the room here, that is one of the most horrifying things that I have ever read. It is right up there on par with Room 217 from The Shining, that chapter. I think it is absolutely chilling no matter how old you are, no matter how you feel about horror, no matter what. You're going to be absolutely disturbed reading that scene. It is uncomfortable, it is scary, it is terrifying, it is mortifying, it is all of the above. It is messed up. And Blatty doesn't hold your hand. He throws you right into it, and he has his hand on the back of your head, and he's like pushing you into things. Let's put it that way. But it's messed up. It's amazing. It really is. Don't get me wrong here. It's an amazing scene, but it is messed up. And like I said, we don't have crucifixes around the house, but if we did, I'd be probably putting them in a drawer at this point. But I think something else is seeing the frustration as a parent of where obviously something supernatural is going on, and all these doctors and talking heads are saying, oh, well, it could be this, they just might need extreme psychiatry and things like that, and it's just got to be maddening, but it's this whole thing about, okay, look, you can convince me, but I've got to go convince the leaders of the Catholic Church here that this is something that we have thought wasn't a big deal since like the 1600s, since we learned about schizophrenia and dissociative disorder, identity disorder, all those things. I always get it mixed up. But those things, we look at it from a science point of view now, and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, maybe, I think they even say in this book one time that more people need doctors than they need a priest for an exorcism, and that was in the 1600s, so it's on the nose about the things about that we don't know about, that these things could be going on. That's where Father Merrin comes into play, obviously, that there are some things that are going on that maybe the reader doesn't know about yet. And this is even some things I think that the movie didn't really visit very much. Now I know there are like prequel and sequel movies, but I have only watched The Exorcist, guys. I haven't watched any of those prequel movies. I haven't watched any of the sequel movies, because that movie just stands alone as one of the best horror movies of all time. So I never really felt the need, because the track record with horror sequels not that good, and I've kind of heard the same about the books for this series. But yeah, look, the ending is extremely satisfying, if not heartbreaking. It is very much, I think it's earned the way that it's done. It pays off something that I was actually having a problem with from this book, and I think it pays it off in a very, very rewarding way and a satisfying way, but it's in a way that's going to make you clutch your pearls a little bit and take a Yeah, like a moment like that it's rather shocking if you haven't seen the movie, but it's very well done. It's very well earned, and I love the way that Blatty kind of just brought all of these threads together here at the very end and made it very, very satisfying. But what did I not like, guys? There are no perfect books, right? Now, as I always say, this might not be anything that bothers you. Something that bothered me a little bit. I thought the Kinderman side story was completely unnecessary. It's a subplot that I can see why they really, really almost completely removed it from the movie. It's like The Godfather in that, there were some characters that they took out of the movie, and I think it was the best decision. Now, I might be influenced because I've seen the movies of both of these for, a dozen times before I read the books. So that might be playing into it here, but I was never, every time we went to Kinderman, I felt like it was taking away from the story that I wanted to hear. So every time we're getting like Karras and Reagan, and then we'll switch back to Kinderman. I'm like, what? No, you're killing the momentum. So that was something I wasn't really crazy about. It just felt like a character from another book. It felt like he was in a different story. I didn't felt like it was really needed here. But, the book isn't overly long, so it doesn't ruin the book. It just harms the pacing at some spots, especially when you're in that final act and everything is really popping off. I'm like, why am I going to Kinderman right now? Please, no. But, again, that's your mileage may vary on that one. And I wish they gave us some more Father Merrin. There are some things that are revealed in the final act about this entity and Father Merrin that I wish that we had gotten more about, and I'm sure that that's what these prequel things are about and stuff like that. But man, Merrin is just not in this book enough. He's such a neat character, and I just want to know more. So I wish he had a little bit more time in the book because he just seems like such a great character. And this history between these two is something that I wish that we would have really been elaborated upon because it sounds like it would have been really, really awesome. But guys, why should you read it? I think because this is the quintessential horror novel, right? Anytime you see a top 10 list out there, except mine, obviously, because I hadn't read it yet, you always see this as one of the top 10 horror books of all time. It's one of those rare cases, like The Shining, where the movie and the book are both great. Now, this is a lot more faithful, obviously, which we'll talk about in my final thoughts. But I just think 50 years later, guys, this story still resonates. It still scares the hell out of people because Mr. Blatty did something really, really amazing here. He touched on something that people were terrified of. And it's something that, like I said, it has transcended time. People are still very, very scared of this. People that aren't religious or even believe in these kind of things are terrified of this story. So it's one of those things where I don't feel like you have to relate to this story on a personal level to really get freaked out by it. It really will touch something that you didn't know was going to scare you to be touched. I know that sounds really freaky the way I just said that, but that's what I just came up with. But look, it has your frights, it has your thrills, but it also has your very human moments, your character study on both Chris and, of course, Father Karras. I mean, there's just some great, great stuff in this book if you are a character person, and that's something I didn't expect it to have going into this. I did not expect it to have these great character moments like it does. But guys, it's just bloody wonderful. I mean, he hits a home run with this, and I think that it'll make you question some things in the best way. Let's put it that way. Now, as for my final thoughts, guys, this absolutely lived up to the high expectations that were placed upon it. 2 for 2 now, because I had the same thing with Godfather, where I was worried that my love for the movie was going to affect how I felt about the book. Now, thankfully, this is a very faithful adaptation. So I think this book obviously expands on some things that maybe didn't really work for me aren't in the movie. So it's one of the things where I'm going to say, okay, I probably like the movie a little bit more. So in most cases, I'm going to say, hey, I always prefer the book to the movie. I think in this case, I do like the movie a little more. But again, guys, you're talking about, almost 40 years of my life I've been watching that movie, and I love it to death. So that's very, very high expectations. But as far as like my expectations for enjoying this book, yeah, exceeded them in every single way. It has all the right human and monster kind of scares in it that I wanted. And even though I knew this story, obviously, I still found ways to freak me out a little bit and creep me out and give me those little tingles up my spine. I think anytime we're reading a horror book, that's what we want, right? Because I say, when you get past a certain age, can a horror book or a movie actually really scare you? No, but can it make you really uncomfortable? Can it give you those little tingles I was talking about? I think so, because this one does. And yeah, guys, it has several of those scenes in this book. I talk about the crucifix scene, but there's several of those scenes in this book that are going to kind of give you the creepy crawlies in all the best way. So it feels amazing to get this one off my bucket list, like I said. And when I do inevitably one day amend my top 10 horror novels list, I am positive that this one will be on there. I've had people ask, am I going to update that this year? I don't think so, because I haven't read enough new things since then, so I don't feel like that list would have changed enough. So maybe by this time next year, I'll be ready to update that list a little bit like I did with my fantasy one. But guys, this book was phenomenal. Definitely pick it up, even if you're not really into horror. Yeah, it's got bad language, it's got some gross outs and stuff. If you're not really into horror, you might not like that very much, but I think that you will appreciate everything else in here so much that it's definitely worth your time, even if you aren't a big horror fan, because his character study, his character work, his character growth in this is really, really well done. And yeah, again, that's something I didn't expect to be talking about when I eventually planned to pick this book up. I'm happy I did, guys. I am extremely happy that I did, and I hope you will too, because I think that you will be happy as you can be reading a book like this. So guys, that was The Exorcist. Guys, what did you think? Have you read it? Drop in the comments and let me know. We are going to be watching the movie again, because my wife has never seen the movie. We read this together. She has like about, I think she said like 70 pages left. So I'm over here anxiously awaiting her reaction to the ending, because she hasn't seen the movie, so she doesn't know. And we'll be watching the movie with her, or she'll be watching the movie for the first time. I'll be watching it for like the 20-something time in a couple of days. So guys, drop in the comments. Let me know what you think about The Exorcist. I can't wait to see what you think. I'll talk to you there.